right, this period of instruction will be on the M16 or the M4 family rifle. How many people in here are carrying a short barreled version? Looks like an M16, only smaller. Just a couple of you? Okay, everybody's got the big long one, right? All right, cool. That just makes remembering stuff a lot easier. First things first, everybody in here has worked for a field grade officer, right? What's the first thing the field grade officer always tells you? Be safe, right? Safety is paramount. Safety first, last, and always. I don't care what you do, just be safe when you do it. We get a safety briefing before every 3-day weekend, for every 4-day weekend. You get a safety briefing when you pick up a power tool. Everything. Safety isn't everything, right? If you watch the news, you hear about somebody getting shot. They want to take your guns away. They want to do this. They want to do that, right? Guns are unsafe. Guns are the devil. Baloney. Baloney. That gun will not do anything it's not told to do by a human being. Correct? Does everybody understand that? Has anybody ever walked past a gun at Walmart or at the farm store or anywhere else and seen a gun do evil things without somebody touching it? Have we? No. So these safety rules aren't for the firearm, are they? Who are they for? Speak up. Who are they for? Part of this is engagement. I know learning has occurred when you engage me as well, right? So who are these safety rules for? The operator, the user, the nut behind the butt plate, right? Let's read them together. What's the first one? Does everybody understand what that means? Always treat every rifle as if it's loaded. Okay? Why is that important? Because it very well may be. That's exactly right. Anybody remember getting a distro message? You know, probably heard it during a safety briefing about a young Spec 4 for Fort Carson, just got back from Iraq, was cleaning his 45 caliber pistol in his apartment, wanted to demonstrate to his friends it was clear. You know what the soldier did? Pointed at his head and pulled the trigger to demonstrate the pistol was clear. Guess what? Pistol weren't so much clear. And Spec 4's not here to tell the story. So, had he treated that weapon as if it were loaded, would he still be here to tell that story? Absolutely. So that one takes care of that. What's the second one? Does everybody understand that? These things were designed with a strict purpose of to kill, maim, or destroy, right? That's what we're going to do with it. We are going to annihilate perfectly defenseless paper targets this week. Okay? If anybody gets shot back at from one of these paper targets, you need to let me know. I've been competitive shooting for almost 25 years and I've never seen a paper target shoot back. Okay? Now some people might question the relevance of what you learned shooting at a perfectly defenseless paper target, right? You're not learning combat training, so you're not doing this, you're not doing that. You're right. But we don't really practice apply direct pressure and elevate to bleeding soldiers either, do we? We do it on a stupid mannequin laying on the ground. Okay? But you go through the motions, so when you do cut yourself at home, you know the first thing you're supposed to do is what? Apply direct pressure and elevate, right? I know in my heart of hearts that from competing or shooting competitively for 20-some years, that given the opportunity to engage an enemy, I will no doubt take into account side alignment trigger control. Okay? I know, I have shot on the world stage, I know what it's like to shoot under pressure. And some people crumble and some people don't. I get that, I understand. And shooting a perfectly defenseless paper target on a world stage still comes with some pressure. Okay? And in a situation where somebody's shooting back at me, I can guarantee you beyond a shadow of a doubt that I'm a better shooter than they are. Roger? And that's what I'm going to make you guys. I'm going to give you guys that confidence to know that when you're engaging the enemy, that you're a better shooter than they are. Because I guarantee you're dealing with better equipment, you've got better ammunition, you've got a better rifle, and you have better training than those guys do. I've seen the training videos they do. They don't have PowerPoint slides in heated buildings. They got AK-47s and rocks. Okay? You will be better trained than them. Cool? Does everybody believe that? Is everybody here comfortable with the fact that we are dealing with the most well-equipped, best-trained army the world has ever seen? Does everybody still believe that? All right, then we're still putting our left foot in front of our right. What's the next one? Until your sights are on the target. How do you know your sights are on the target? You got to be looking through them, right? All right, we'll get to that part. That's a trick question. I'm sorry. But you keep your booger picker, right? That's this one. You keep your booger picker off the trigger until you're ready to kill, maim, or destroy what's in front of the gun. All right. Last one. What's it say? Why is that important? Penetration, right? These things don't just stop the first thing they hit, do they? We have to know what's behind them. We have to know where the good guys are in and amongst the bad guys, right? So are there any questions about the safety rules? Big boy rules, can we all play by these rules? Again, these aren't for the weapon. This is for who? The operator, right? The nut behind the butt plate. So let's keep the nut behind the butt plate tight, and everybody come out of here learn and know worse for wear. Roger? All right. We're going to go through the clearing procedure. One of you senior leaders might say, we don't have a clearing barrel, Sergeant. Right? Because God knows you can't clear a rifle without a clearing barrel. Right? If you come to Fort McCoy for pre-mob training, I guarantee you stood in a 2-hour line to clear your rifle before you went to the chow hall. I promise you, I saw that lunacy every day. So, if you have a firearm in and amongst arm's reach, go ahead and secure the firearm, point it safe direction, right? Safe direction is anywhere other than that's your buddy or yourself. So we'll point it up or down. I don't care. Your choice. But the first thing we're going to do is point it in a safe direction. Roger? Now, we will remove the magazine. Magazines are out. Excellent. What do we do next? I'm giving you the answer. I promise you I won't ask you a question without giving you the answer. Lock the bolt to the rear by pulling the charging handle to the rear while depressing the lower half of the bolt catch. Return the charging handle to the front. Now, visually inspect. Visually inspect the chamber area. All right? Everybody's chamber should be clear. Go ahead and release the bolt to go forward. Close the ejector port cover. Why is that on? All right. Point the thing, keep it pointed in a safe direction. Rotate the selector lever to safe, or semi rather, and pull the trigger. We have just cleared the rifle. Yes? Some might call those clearing barrel procedures, right? Minus the clearing barrel. All right, go ahead and pull the charging handle to the rear again, release. Place the selector lever on safe, and close the ejector port cover again. Does anybody have any questions about how to clear the pistol, clear the rifle rather? Once we go through the live fire exercises, you will be asked to clear the rifle before we move to the pits or back up to the wherever the next movement is. So, is everybody clear on how? Clear. Does everybody understand the procedures to clear the rifle? The 3 of you? Is everybody clear? Okay. All right. The function check. The function check is a requirement prior to any live fire. Okay? Why might we do a function check? Make sure it works, right? Let's just go through an analogy. Say you're late for work. And you go out and start your car, and your car don't start. Did we do a function check on the car? No. Our situation has not improved because we did not do a function check, right? So, if you are in a situation where you might need a live fire device, such as your individual assigned weapon, and had not performed a function check, and you go to start the car and it's not going to start, has your situation improved? No. So it's very important to know your stuff works, right? Function check with the rifle is very, very easy. The first thing we're going to do is check safe, right? Always check the safety first. Now, if the rifle is on safe, what do we know about it? If it's on safe, what do we know about the rifle? It is charged. It's cocked, however you want to say it. So, if it is on safe, we know it's cocked. So all we have to do to test the safe is do what? Utilize the booger picker. Pull the trigger. Attempt to pull the trigger. What should not happen? The hammer should not fall. Again, I'm not going to ask you a question without giving you the answer. Okay, so feel free to answer out loud. That way I know, again, you're engaged. Okay? So, we've checked the safe works. The hammer does not fall when we attempt to pull the trigger. How do we check semi? Rotate the selector lever to semi and pull the trigger, right? What should we hear when we pull the trigger? We should hear the hammer fall. Now, to check burst, we have to rotate, or we have to charge it, pull the trigger, again, right, because we just checked semi, the hammer is fallen. Charge it again, place it on burst, pull the trigger. How many times do we have to charge it? 3 times. When we release the trigger, we should hear and feel what? The metallic click. We should pull the trigger again and the hammer should fall, right? It's a very, very simple, very easy process, but we have to do this to make sure the thing works. Because you want to know in a time of need that your M16 has your back, right? Any question on a function check? Crystal clear? Oop, all right. These are the characteristics of your individually assigned weapon, okay? Thing that's important about your individually assigned weapon. What does that thing do for you? Besides weigh you down at the chow hall and be a pain in the butt when you're in a classroom, what does the M16 or your individually assigned weapon do for you? Keeps you alive in time. Does it not provide your offensive and defensive capability to your organization? I already pointed it out. Everybody's shoulder says U.S. Army on it, right? Last time I checked, we're in a business where it's okay to be operating this kind of thing. Encounter, engage, destroy the enemies of the United States, right? It's an ugly word, but they pay us well to do it, right? So it's okay to be good at it. The problem is, nobody wants to learn how to do it. It doesn't look good on the ATARS reports, does it? You know, we can pencil it, make everybody expert, but we actually do PT to get everybody's PT scores up, right? We don't actually shoot to get better, but we go do PT. Anybody see an extra push-up save your life? How about running a little faster? That one maybe. That one maybe. All right, I'll spot you that one. But if you shoot better, you don't have to run as fast. I'll say that. Look at me. I don't run real good. All right? Just say it. So, your offensive and defensive capability. I'm going to tell you a real quick story. While I was mobilized at Fort McCoy, I had a soldier that was having a difficult time meeting the minimum standard for qualification. Until the 7th try. On the 7th try, a soldier got enough to satisfy the requirement. So when the scores were being read out after the soldier's 7th attempt at individual daytime qualification, the soldier did a little dance for hitting 24 out of 40 targets. Who's got a calculator handy? What's 24 divided by 40? 60% plus or minus, right? We already saw it, don't be the 60% soldier. This is what I told the soldier. I said, I want you on April 15th to take all your tax documents down to H&R Block. And I said, I want you to tell them that you only want 60% of your allowed return and see if you dance a jig then. You know what the soldier told me? Well, that ain't funny. I want all my money. Well, I said, well, I want you to hit all your targets. Because when you got my back, I don't need to know or worry that, 40% of those targets are still coming at me. So, going back to don't be the 60% soldier, this is a skill. It is the single most important skill that as a soldier you may possess. It's the only skill level 1 task that's in the warrior leader or the soldier's manual common task, whatever they're calling it now. The only skill level 1 task that will not only save your life, save the life of your buddy, but eliminate the threat all at the same time. Everybody understand that? Now, you say, but Sergeant, it's not important for me, it doesn't mean a lot to me to have to shoot well. It might not. But if you sitting here look to your left and look to your right, do you think it might be important that you shoot well to that person? Because we all are on the same team. We covered that, right? So, just to put it into perspective a little bit, it's okay to be good at this, if not for your own pride, for the safety of your brothers, okay? Especially on Veterans Day. It's a day to remember that. So, your offensive and defensive capability lies in your understanding of this material. 5.56 by 45 millimeter. What does that number mean? It's the size of the round we shoot, Okay? The bullet is 5.56 millimeters in diameter. The projectile is not quite 6 millimeters in diameter. The cartridge length is approximately 45 millimeters in length. Okay? We're still the United States of America. Why we can't call it a 223, I don't know, but I don't make those rules. Okay? It is semi-automatic, burst, or automatic. Based on what you carry determines what your system is capable of. All of them say semi on them, don't they? We shouldn't have any that say auto on them, but they are out there. Not A1 so much as A3, but does anybody have an M16 A3? Well, once, twice. How about M4 A1? All right, so everybody's does say burst on it, right? What does burst fire mean? Shoots 3 rounds for every pull of the trigger, right? It's important we understand what the capabilities are. Magazine fed, what does that mean? Source of ammunition comes from the magazine, right? There's no other way of feeding this thing, right? It has to eat from the magazine. Everybody got that? Gas operated, what does that mean?
Gas from the round to recock.
It uses gas from the firing of the previous round to go through the cycle of operations, right? Everybody knows what the 8 steps in the cycle of operations are, right? We'll save that one for later. Air cooled, what's that mean? Cools off from the air around it. On a day like today, it's going to cool off a lot faster than a day in July, right? Understandable. And shoulder fired, what does that mean? Means nobody's last name in here is Rambo, right? All right, the jokes don't get any better. You're going to have to keep up. All right, this is the type of ammunition you may or may not see. Starting from left to right. The M193 is the old M16A1 ammunition, right? 55 grain bullet, you know, shot designed specifically for the M16A1. How many people have heard you don't ever shoot A1 ammunition out of an A2? How many people have heard that? Come on, I know more than 2. Nobody's heard that? All right. Okay. The bullet dimensions are different, and the barrel rates of twist are different, such that the M16A2 barrel, the rate of twist is a little faster, destabilizes or tears apart, spins a 55 grain bullet too fast, whatever, yada yada. It works, it'll shoot, it'll eat it, okay? You won't have the accuracy that is expected, but it'll eat it. And if you're shooting at a 50-meter target, it'll change his level of motivation, okay? It'll work, but it's not ideal. Same thing for the M196 tracer. All it is has a sulfur tip on the same 193 bullet, okay? Of course, we know what the dummies and the blanks look like. They don't kill nobody. They don't work for much anything. The M855, what is it? What do we know that as? Green tip, right? That's what we see everywhere, right? That's the green tip stuff that everybody shoots and we can't have enough of. And, you know, I'm sure if everybody in here was alert, we got some of it at the house somewhere, right? Or am I the only one? That's a joke. That's not on film, right? Okay. All right. Same thing with the M856. It's just a sulfur-coated bullet, sulfur-coated projectile to illuminate the tracer. And if any of you see this stuff, short-range training ammunition, I'm not saying you will or won't see it, but it's pretty rare. It's actually a plastic projectile that is used in training situations. It still stings, don't it? All right, so if you see that, know what it is. How can we identify the short-range training ammunition? It's got a silver case and it's got a blue projectile, okay? Capiche? Everybody got it? All right. Not saying you see it, not saying you won't, but if you do see it, that's what it is. Because this is a basic PMI, I have to go through things such as loading. Does everybody here understand how to load your M16? You go by the ammo point, you grab your full magazine, you stick it in the gun, close the bolt, right? You will be required to fill your own magazines here. Believe it or not, I have met people in the Army that cannot perform this task. And when they do perform it, they perform it incorrectly. I have another short story. I got all kinds of short stories. I was evaluating a best warrior competition for the 88th Training Division. 88th RSC was hosting a best best warrior competition. This is not like a, training center. This is a best warrior competition. Soldier comes in, task is to load an M9 pistol. So I said, this is the task, conditions, standards. You ready to go? Roger that. Go. Soldier grabs the dummy rounds for the M9, starts to fill the magazine with the bullets in there backwards. Like front towards enemy, except now I'm the enemy. All right? Then the soldier proceeds to put the magazine in the M9 pistol backwards. So at least the bullets are oriented correctly now. Okay? The soldier said, it doesn't make any sense. I not one to mince words. I said, does it not now? Are you sure? Is that your final answer? Okay. That was final answer. So you don't get any extra credit. You do not make the best warrior list. Okay. So, and I'm not picking on PFCs, but I've met master sergeants that can't load magazines as well. So there is no ignorance. Does not play favors to anybody. 2, load the rifle with the bolt open. Simply insert the magazine until you hear it what? Until you hear a click, right? Close the bolt. I have a note here, okay? The reason I have a note is because people experience problems when they do things that the Army has taught them to do. How many people have you ever seen will take a 30-round magazine and tap it on their helmet? Tap it on their helmet. How many people have done it? Let's just say it. Let's be real. Come on. How many people have done it? Okay. You know what that does? It bends the magazine. So when you have malfunctions, because you've bent your magazine. So if you must tap your magazine on your helmet, let's take the helmet off. I will break you with this habit. Okay? So take your helmet off before you tap your magazine on your head. And we'll see how much longer you do that, okay? You do not need to bang your magazine on your helmet to seat the bullets. One real quick thump into the palm of your hand does the job just fine. Doesn't bend the magazine. But because we all have bent magazines, because we've been living in a John Lane world, if you slap up too hard on the bottom of the magazine to lodge it into the rifle, what may happen? The rounds come flying off the top, right? And now we got problems that the world can't fix. So, I have a note here that somebody wants to read for me, right? Maury, read that for me.
Do not slap up on the bottom of the magazine when the bolt is in the rearward position, as rounds may dislodge from the magazine, causing a malfunction.
Right? Everybody gets that. Okay? You put the magazine in the magazine well until you hear a what? Click. What's that? Click. Until you hear it go click. When you hear it go click, if you gently pull down on it and it doesn't come out, guess what? It's in there. You may then close the bolt, and now you're loaded, ready to go rock and roll. See there? Pull down on the magazine, sure it's seated. Press the upper portion of the bolt catch, allow the bolt to go forward. We are now in condition called what? Red. Does everybody understand what condition red is? How many people have deployed? Should be about everybody's hand except mine, right? Because I've been hiding. Did we operate green, amber, red over there? Green, amber, red, and black? Okay, we're in condition red. Okay? We're in condition red. Before we let the bolt go forward, what condition were we in? Before we put the magazine in it, what color were we in? Green. Green. So we see how we went from green, amber, to red. Now what do I got to do to make the weapon black? Say what? Nope. Rotate the selector. I told you I won't give you a question without giving you the answer. Rotate the selector lever to semi, right? Okay. When we give you the commands on the range, we're going to use colors. Okay? We're going to say make your weapon amber, make your weapon red, make your weapon black. Is everybody good to go using those rules? Say again? Is everybody good to go using the colors? So we need to go over the conditions again. What's green? No magazine, nothing in the chamber. Where's the safety at? On safe. Okay? How do I make it amber? Insert a magazine. Is the chamber still empty or has it got one in it? Empty. Where's the safety at? Still on safe. How do I make it red? Put one in the chamber, right? Where's the safety at? Still on safe. And finally, to engage, I just make it black by taking the safety in the semi position, right? Everybody got it? When we're done, you'll be told to make your weapon green, remove the magazine, visually inspect the chamber, place select lever on safe. Is everybody cool with that? I wouldn't want anybody to object and have to be told what to do, right? Because I know when we go to the range normally, we got 13 people watching us do something. You're going to be surprised the lack of supervision you get here. We're not going to be unsafe, but you're not going to be micromanaged either. Because as future competitive shooters or instructors of marksmanship, it's important that you gain a confidence and therefore a competence with your individually assigned weapon. Oh? Like I said, you give a soldier an opportunity to be a soldier, you might be impressed with the results. So are there any questions about loading, clearing, everything we've covered so far? Even though from the slide, instead of sports, I'm going to call it Sport RS. All right, we already know what all the sports means, right? What does the S stand for? Now, when I say slap up on the bottom of the magazine, what are we doing? Just ensuring that it's properly seated, right? Okay. When I pull, what am I doing? To the rear. That's supposed to clear any obstruction, right? And I'm observing, that's the O, right? What's the other R? Release the charging handle, right? Then when I tap the forward assist to make sure the bolt is fully in the battery, and now I'm going to interject another R here. What does the R stand for? Does anybody know? Reacquire the target. Somebody's been through this class before. Who said that? Gold star for you. Reacquire the target. Why? Because we don't want to pull the trigger without being pointed at the target, right? Why waste Uncle Sam's marvelous ammunition? So when all we got to do is reacquire the target. And once we've reacquired the target, we all know the last S, right? So instead of sports, we're going to call it Sport RS, right? Put the Type R sticker on it, add 5 horsepower. All right, what is remedial action? Going once, going twice. When you do sports and it doesn't work, right? Now we have, or Sport RS, and it doesn't work. Now we have to figure out what the source of the problem is. Remedial action with an M16 is nothing more than clearing it, introducing a new source of ammunition, and continue to fight. Cool? Usually, the problem lies in the source of ammunition with the M16. Because of the magazine trick, remember that one? Okay? Usually the problem with a continued malfunction with an M16 comes from a problematic magazine. Usually. Can't catch it all, but usually. All right? So, clear the rifle, introduce a new source of ammunition. That might mean another magazine, right? Recharge the weapon, and get back in the fight. Any questions on clearing a malfunction? All right. Let's talk about the nuts and bolts of all this, right? Because learning how to load the thing, clear it, and all of that doesn't do us any good if we can't be effective with the thing, right? So, on the board, I have what are known as the 4 fundamentals of marksmanship. Can anybody here tell me how we landed at the 4 fundamentals of marksmanship? Years and years and years of training, that's close. All right. We've made references to the United States Army Marksmanship Unit, right? That organization was created in 1956 to increase the level of Army marksmanship, okay, to a national, international level, to make the United States Army competitive on the world stage as it pertains to marksmanship. How many people knew that marksmanship or shooting is an Olympic event? Okay, that's cool. A lot of people knew that. All right, that's cool. So, they asked this really, really smart guy, Colonel Sharp, West Point graduate. No, I'm not making his name up. It's S-H-R-A-R-P-E, okay? To, in step, write down the number of steps to executing one single well-aimed shot. How many steps do you suppose the good colonel came up with? How many? 56. 56 separately identifiable steps, measurable steps to executing one single well-aimed shot. Now, I don't know about y'all, but when my train of thought takes off down the track with a goal of 56 in mind, I make it to about 2 or 3 and my train takes a dirt road. Okay? Like some people call it ADD, I just call it a short attention span, okay? Whatever. So, from the 56 separate, measurable, and identifiable performance steps, way back in the old Army, we used to call what's known as the 8 steady hold factors, right? Has anybody been in the Army long enough to remember the 8 steady hold factors? A couple of hands there sitting in the back. Got it. Okay, the 8 steady hold factors. We're getting closer, right? We're about 1/7 of the way there. We've improved a little bit. But still, how far down that list of 8 do we make it before we'd run our train into a ditch? Right? So even at 4, we're still challenging some intellectually advantaged people, aren't we? Because most people can't walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. And I'm not pointing fingers or saying nasty things, I'm just speaking the truth, right? Most people can't make it through 4, can they? So, if I were to ask you of those 4 things on the table or on the board there, what are absolutely critical for the execution of a well-aimed shot, what kind of answer am I going to get? All of them? I just said you can't do all of them. Say that again? Aiming and breath control. Okay. Who here is breathing on their own right now? Everybody's breathing on their own. Okay, so I don't need to teach you how to breathe, right? Okay, so I could probably scratch breathing off the list. Right? When you take off running in your PT test, you got somebody right there next to you telling you to breathe? How about when you stop? You don't have a breathing coach when you're running, why do you need a breathing coach when you're shooting? Right? I'm making some drawn out analogies here, but I'm causing you to think on your own a little bit. Okay? First Sergeant, how long have you been in the Army? 28? 20 years. 20 years. The only time anybody's ever told him to breathe in 20 years in the Army is when he sits through a PMI class. Is that accurate? Is that accurate? Okay. So apparently you're okay to breathe for the Army on the rest of your time, right? But just when you're sitting in here learning how to shoot, you need to be talking about breathing. Okay? I can tell you, 25 years of competitive marksmanship, I have not had a breathing coach. Okay? I've had shooting coaches, never breathing coaches. Okay? Yet I digress. What is the one thing you hear every time you go out on the range? Watch your what? You heard it too. Watch your breathing, right? What's my breathing going to do? Is it going to change when I start watching it? Hopefully I'm creating the wheels, kicking the rust off the wheels. Now the wheels are turning, right? Hopefully that's happening. So with that being said, what of the 4, what 2 on the board are absolute requirements for the execution of a well-aimed shot? Aiming and trigger control. Thank you. Learning has occurred. My job here is done. See? Time that. That's absolutely correct. Okay? A steady position. Does it help? Absolutely. It helps. Is it a requirement? No. But in an effort to encourage the likelihood of a well-aimed shot, we shall discuss steady position. Okay? The principles of a steady position, meaning the things that make up a steady position, are these things on the board. They are support, natural point of aim, alignment, and points of contact. Okay? Regardless of the position you are firing from, these are the things that are going to make up that position, right? Does everybody understand that? Support. Where do we garner our support from? What is everything built from? The ground, right? The ground. So we want to transfer the stability of the ground into our shooting position. Cool? Does that make sense? When you build a house, you don't build it on a deck of cards, do you? Deck of card blows over in the wind you got around here. But you use concrete foundations, mortar foundations, stuff like that, right? To create stability, right? So, we garner that stability from the ground into our shooting position using either bone support or what else? Artificial support. What is artificial support? Anything that's not your body, right? You know, in the competitive world, artificial support is not allowed. In the competitive arena, artificial support is not allowed. That means the person that can hold the rifle the best or the pistol the best using their bone support has the steadiest position. In this particular game we play as the U.S. Army, I don't care what you use, okay? Because the Army gives you a lot of stuff you can use, don't they? They give you rucksacks, they give you helmets, they give you Humvees, they give you all kinds of stuff that you can use to support your weapon in an instance that you require artificial support, don't they? Right? To increase the steadiness of your position, they give you all kinds of stuff. So those are things we can utilize, just not in a competitive shooting situation. Okay? Any questions about how we garner support? All right? As far as bone support, anybody in 6th grade ever have to hold the dictionary out like this? Or was I the only one? Okay. So what don't I have underneath the dictionaries like this? I don't have any bone support, right? Because it's a whole lot easier to hold the dictionaries like this, right? But the teacher said that was cheating. So I had to hold. All right, never mind. All right. This is what I mean by natural point of aim. Who has ever played with one of these guys? Yeah. Okay. When you chuck the rifleman down on the table, he's pointed somewhere, is he not? Okay. That's all well and good, but the bad guy's over here, right? Is this position aligned at the bad guy? The bad guy's located here? Well, with this guy, guess who this guy represents in his picture? This is Ewins, right? Okay? If the bad guy's over here and you're not pointing at the target, how do you align yourself, or this guy, to the bad guy or to the target? This guy, you just pick him up and move him, right? Because you can't turn the rifle on this guy, it just springs back. Some of them lost their spring, they don't come back as fast as some of them are still bent. But you don't, come on now, I just gave you a break. Let's go. All right. So you can't just move the rifle on this thing, can you? You got to pick the whole guy up and turn, right? Reorient, realign the position towards the target. Again, this represents you in a prone position, does it not? But how many of you, when you come time to point at the target, we just move the gun? Right? We just move the gun. Right? That's what we do, right? Is that the right way to do it? What have we changed by just moving the gun? We have changed our support system, our support underneath the gun, haven't we? So we no longer have good support because we've just changed it. We have to realign our position. Much the same as we do with this guy. Instead of just moving part of it, you move your prone position and orient it towards the target. Does everybody understand what I'm trying to say? Your prone position made up of support, natural point of aim, blah, 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 all those things that we just talked about, that's your prone position. In an effort to orient it towards the target, you move all of those components at the same time to realign the natural point of aim on the target. Does that make sense? Not just part, right? Your machine gun guy has to be pointed towards the bad guy. In order to orient the machine gun guy towards the enemy, you move the whole thing, right? Not just part of it. You guys are the same way. You have to move your whole position, not just parts of it. And we'll show you how to do that with some of it, okay? The points of contact that you have with a rifle. You have an advantage with a rifle because you have multiple points of contact. What's the first one? The shoulder, right? You pull the buttstock into the shoulder. What's that do? Gives us a place to get what? From cheek to stock well. How much does the average human head weigh? Let's just say average. 8 to 10 pounds, they say. Okay? How many people have walked down the firing line when we're on the range and see somebody doing this number behind the sights? Right? Or you see the little K-pop just going... Anybody ever seen that? Do they have a good one of these? No. Well, guess what? If your head moves behind the rear sight, what don't you have? You don't have a good sight alignment or a good sight picture. And what happens when you don't have those? You get a shot group that looks something like you had a random rat walking through your underwear drawer. And you pull all the underwear out. Everybody getting the visual? Getting the visual? What does a mouse leave behind? Right? Feces, right? And when your mouse walks through your underwear drawer, there's no identified feces area for the mouse, is it? It's scattered all over your underwear drawer, isn't it? Just had a coach that used that analogy. Your shit looks like rat shit in a dresser drawer. I think, all right. So, basically what I'm telling you is all of this stuff goes together to decrease the size of your shot group, right? That's what I'm getting at. If you don't do this stuff, you're going to have, never mind, okay. So, the stock up high and in firm in the pocket of the shoulder gives you a good cheek to stock weld. A good cheek to stock weld anchors your shooting eye behind the rear sight aperture, does it not? Thus making you look through the same spot in the rear sight over and over and over again. All right. Once you have that, you establish a firing hand grip. Which one is your firing hand? The one with your booger picker on it, right? Now, how many people are right-handed and left-eye dominant? Right-handed, left-eye dominant. Okay, so are you shooting, or do you favor the hand, your dominant hand or your dominant eye? Which one are we doing? Dominant eye, we're supposed to, right? We're supposed to. Okay, let's do a dominant eye test. Everybody, make a hole about the size of a quarter. Put your two hands in front of your face. Make a hand about the size. About the size. I think it's actually in here. Let me not get ahead of myself. Oh, we'll do it now just because it's fun. All right, make both hands about the size of a quarter. Look at the screen. Look at the little army guy through the screen. Now pull your hand back to your face. That goes to your shooting eye. That goes to your dominant eye. And you can't steer it either. All right, if you're trying to go, I want to shoot my left eye, you can't steer it. Okay? That goes to your shooting eye. If it doesn't work, if you don't like doing it that way, make the hole about the size of a quarter, look at the screen, look at the object through the screen, close one eye at a time. You will only see that object with one eye. You will only see that object with one eye. All of it. What you're looking at. Okay? So how many people are shooting with their dominant eye? How many people are not? One in every crowd. Now, I have a couple of things about that, okay? In this particular situation, the Army is asking you to hit a target that's 40 inches tall and 20 inches wide. Can you see well enough with your non-dominant eye to accomplish that? Probably. No, sir? Maybe? We'll see. Okay. Here's the deal. So much of what we do in the Army operates off the dexterity of our hand, not the dominance of our shooting eye. Right? We look for our magazines with our non-shooting hand, right? Everything we do, we wear our watch on the arm because it's the one we're supposed to wear it on because I'm right-handed, right? Those things are kind of built into who we are. In order to change, you can't change your eye dominance unless you lose an eye, and I don't want that to happen. So we can work around it, okay? I will say as a competitive shooter, you're never going to reach your full potential shooting with your non-dominant eye, okay? The way your eyes work with each other, one eye is an information gatherer, one eye is an information processor, okay? One eye gathers information and supports the dominant eye. The eye that processes all the information is the one, the brain, right? The one the brain is waiting to hear from. That's the one we need to work with. Otherwise, it all, you got one eye doing work that it's not designed or wired in to be doing. Will it do it? Absolutely. The human brain's an amazing piece of equipment. Glad we all got issued one. All right? But it's something you have to teach the brain to do. There are tricks we can do, and we can work with that. So, if you're extraordinarily uncomfortable shooting with your dominant eye because you're with the other hand, we can work around that. All right? Just know that you will be selling yourself short ultimately in some kind of competitive shooting situation. It's not the end of the world. You still get to pay taxes, but that's just kind of the thing. So we've established that the firing hand should be the hand that we're using that is related to our dominant eye, right? The non-firing hand, which one is that? The other one. Okay, that's the other one. Those all go together to help us hold the rifle. Here's some visual aids. Anybody ever seen these visual aids before? Where are they? They're in the manual, aren't they? They're in the manual. So a couple of people have opened the book. That's good. past page 2. Okay, the non-firing hand grip. You should form a natural V in the non-firing hand to allow the rifle to rest between the thumb and forefinger across the palm of the hand. Why is that? So your fingers can naturally curl around the forearm without exhausting or creating a muscular tension kind of scenario. When you grip the front end of the gun, what's the front end of the gun start doing? Start shaking. And if we're shaking the gun that way, are we building a steady position? No. So just allow the fingers to naturally curl around the front end of the gun. That's your non-firing hand. The firing hand is a little bit different story. Everybody put your firing hand up and make a fist. Okay? Make a fist, not a white knuckler, not one that you attack somebody with, but a good firm grip like you're shaking hands. Okay? Now move your trigger finger. Loosen the grip and continue to move the trigger finger. When you loosen the grip, do you see how you're moving more fingers than just the trigger finger? What are those fingers holding to? They're holding on to what? The pistol grip. And if those fingers are moving, what else is moving? The rifle. All right? Our whole goal is to point the weapon at the rifle, or point the weapon at the target and fire without moving it, right? That's our whole goal. So if we're shaking on the front end and moving it with the back end, are we moving the gun? Absolutely. So we need to establish some parameters here in which to operate so that I can point the rifle at the weapon, or point the rifle at the target, and then allow the trigger finger to move without moving the rifle. Okay? So I like to call this a firm handshake grip, such that allows your finger to move smooth and straight to the rear. Okay? What do I mean by straight to the rear? So it doesn't move side to side, right? Now the trigger doesn't really move side to side, does it? But it doesn't stop you from putting sideways pressure on a thing, does it? If you put 10 pounds of sideways pressure on that trigger, where's that gun going? It's sideways, because the gun only weighs 8.5 pounds. Okay? You put 10 pounds of sideways pressure on the gun, you're going to move the gun, thus eliminating all the stuff you work so hard to try to do, right? So, that's what I say about the firing hand grip. A firm handshake type grip that allows the trigger finger to fall naturally on the trigger and allow the trigger to move smooth and straight to the rear. Everybody got it? Smooth and straight to the rear. That will become, you'll get tired of hearing that, but hopefully you will remember it when you walk through the door. Smooth and straight to the rear with the trigger, right? Rifle butt position. Notice the rifle butt is placed high in the shoulder to allow his dominant eye to be up, or his head to be upright and erect, and his dominant eye to be anchored behind the rear side aperture. Right? If you think about it, when you're watching TV, do you slump your head forward and watch TV like this? When you read, do you read out of the top of your eyes like this? Yes, go ahead.
The one thing different about this picture,
Yes.
I think it's something we'll also from, is the IOTV. It jacks with that.
I understand. Everybody hear what he said? With the vest, some, I mean, even the camouflage pattern's wrong in these pictures, right? So that's something we have to work with. Now, your staff sergeant, right? So you've heard the whole crawl, walk, run thing as far as teaching in the Army? Right. Well, what I would like you to do when you get to train your soldiers is have them shoot without that stuff on to figure out what right looks like. Okay? Everybody hear what I'm saying here? Shoot without that stuff. Figure out what right looks like. Then add the equipment so they can make that equipment fit so that they can get back to what right feels like with the stuff on. Roger? Now, do you need live ammunition to do that? What do you need? You diamond washers, we can do that. We can just paint a 55-gallon drum in one of these trash boxes with some silhouettes on them, do some dry fire exercises without diamond washer, right? We don't need nothing but sergeant stein, is that right? Right. Okay, so we just have to be creative. We have to know what right feels like. In order for you to teach them what right feels like, what do you have to know? You have to know what right feels like, don't you? And in order for you to know what right feels like, you need to practice this stuff without that stuff on. I believe you me, I have seen examples of congressional investigations gone bad. I'll say that. I have seen, and I'm not picking on anybody here, but I have seen while at Fort McCoy in January, they issue everybody everything they need to keep warm, right? And what's Joe going to wear at Fort McCoy in January? Everything they need to keep warm, right? Okay, so, and again, I'm not picking on anybody, but I had a female show up. It was exactly 4.5 feet tall, right? Issued everything in a size medium, right? I wear a size large. So she was issued everything in a size medium, to include her helmet and goggles. So her goggles stuck off her face like this, right? And the helmet just kind of covered up the goggles, right? And she's got stuff that is literally sagging off of her, okay? And I lost every resemblance I had of military bearing, and I asked her point blank, I said, who in the blank did this to you? Because I could not believe that a first line leader would send one of her soldiers out in the field looking like that, right? Or at least out of CIF looking like that. I mean, I got to try that stuff on, right? So this is leadership failure, in my opinion. So I believe you me, I've seen the problems that, you know, we have to wear all this stuff because somebody's son or daughter got killed and wrote their congressman, they weren't wearing the equipment properly, and now it's SOP from the general on down that you can't go to the bathroom without a safety vest on, okay? I don't make those rules, got it. But nowhere does it say that you cannot learn how to operate that rifle without that equipment on. Got it? Train as you fight, we'll get there. That's in the run phase, okay? So we'll work with it, and there's tricks to wearing that stuff. You can manipulate it so that it gets out of the way when it needs to be out of the way, and it's there when you need it, okay? That's an excellent point, okay? But nevertheless, the rifle butt is up high in the shoulder. One of the things that typically works is inside the vest, all right? To do that, you got to loosen it at the top and adjust it. But anyway, that's one of the things that typically works is inside the vest. But the rifle butt is up high in the shoulder to allow the shooting eye, the dominant eye, to be directly behind the rear sight aperture, allowing for consistent sight alignment, right? The stock weld. The stock weld. How many people have heard the tip of the nose of the charging handle? Everybody's heard that one, right? You know why we've heard that? You know why we've been told that? Because it's easy to check, right? Does it work for everybody? No. No. Some people got no nose, some people got too many noses. Right? Too much nose. I don't make the rules, man. Okay? But that's how it works. So that rule doesn't work for everybody. If I was to line everybody up, you know, compare yourself to the guy next to you, or the gal next to you, there aren't two of you in here that are the same size and shape, are they? But the M16 don't change size and shape, does it? So we all got to fit the one thing, right? These are concessions we all have to make. Now, part of learning to be a shooter or a marksman is understanding how your body fits that thing, okay? And the way you do it might be different than the way this person does it. That's all part of what it takes to learn this stuff, okay? All right, this is a real life picture. The lighting's horrible, but you can see these things in a different scenario. This is more of a prone, unsupported situation. A lot of people are going to this. Okay, a lot of people are going to grabbing the front of the magazine. Why are we doing that? You can get the elbows in tighter, but another thing is all this stuff we have to wear makes our arms inherently shorter, doesn't it? And when that happens, you can't necessarily reach the front end of the gun like you used to be able to without all that stuff on, right? So that's one of the reasons we're going to that kind of thing. It's improvisational. Do whatever works. I don't care. Steady position is not a requirement for a well-aimed shot, is it? We already discovered that. So you do whatever allows you to be successful. As long as it conforms to the rules, I'm okay with it. All right? So what questions do you see about what's going on up here? Do you see anything that jumps out at you? What are some things, if you were in a peer coach situation, you were walking down the firing line, attempting to coach, yes, go ahead.
I'm a little off picture, but it looks like his buttstock is lower on the shoulder than what you were just saying.
Okay. He's saying that the position of the rifle butt looks a little lower, and I know this guy personally. The guy's got no neck. So in order for him to get his head behind the ACOG, everybody see it's got an ACOG on it? That's where the rifle butt has to be. There's no right or wrong. It's whatever works for you. And that's what has gotten so many marksmanship instructors in trouble with this, is they've taught the wrong thing. They've taught you got to go to the tip of your finger on the trigger, the tip of your nose to the charging handle. Those are cookie cutter techniques, easy checks and easy fixes for me to identify. When I'm walking, I'm teaching 100 people how to shoot, I got to have some things that I can identify. Because I'm not doing my job if I don't tell them they're doing something wrong, right? So you got to get the tip of your nose to the charging handle. That's obviously what you're doing wrong. Okay, so it's whatever allows you to be comfortable. I'm going to interject, and this train's going to go way up. How many people have ever had a good time on an Army range? About half. How many people have been on an Army range where you get yelled at and told to go faster and you're not doing a very good job and made it an uncomfortable experience? Is that an environment conducive to training? When you're not comfortable, when you're not building confidence, when you're not learning? Okay, so how I relate that to this is if you're not comfortable in a firing position, you don't want to do it, do you? If you stick your hand in a fire and your hand starts melting, you want to pull your hand out, don't you? Okay, so that's part of like doing it like this. If it hurts when you lay down and shoot prone, don't do it like that. Okay? It's not right if it hurts. Okay? It's not an endurance test. It's not a test of your intestinal fortitude. Okay? If it hurts when you lay down and shoot prone, don't do it like that. Do something different. Okay? But fix what hurts. Okay? If you are comfortable in a shooting position, you'll be more conducive to shooting a well-aimed shot. Does that make sense? Okay? It doesn't have to hurt to be steady, and it doesn't have to hurt to be right. Okay? You can have fun doing it. You can learn how to do this well, and it doesn't have to hurt. Okay? So these are things we can actually work around. So to get back to the origin of that is, yes, it looks like that compared to the previous picture, but this guy's like 6'2" and about 240, and it's all on his shoulders. So it's going to look different than the guy in BDUs in the cartoon drawing. Okay? So what else do we see that's different about this?
Looks like his head's tilted a little bit forward rather than up high.
Okay? His head is tilted a little bit forward rather than upright and erect. Okay? Again, because of the size and shape of this personal individual, the rifle butt's got to be a little bit lower, which moves it farther away from his head, right? But by pulling the hand, by grabbing the front end of the gun around the magazine, he's able to bring it up higher to keep his head upright and erect. If his forward hand was out here to on the fore end of the gun, how much lower would the position be to the ground? It'd be a lot lower, right? So it would be a lot worse. His head leaning forward would be a lot worse. So yes, although it might not be ideal for this guy in particular, it's about as good as he can make it given his size and shape. Does that make sense? Does everybody get that? All right. Any questions before we move on? Now we're going to go through each of the components. All right. The rifle butt is placed inside the pocket of the shoulder. The pocket of the shoulder, if you stick your arm out to the side, not hitting your buddy. Right? Stick your arm straight out to the side. Place your shoulder, or place your hand in your shoulder, and as you bring your arm forward, you should feel a pocket form right about the bottom of your collarbone. What is that spot when you're wearing the vest? It's right underneath the shoulder strap of the vest, isn't it? That's why we say sometimes it's important to go inside the vest. Okay? This allows the head and the firing line to remain upright as much as possible. All right? As much as possible. With everybody, it's not going to be perfect. As long as it's as good to allow you to be successful, then we're okay. It says that the head and eye is not canted. What that means is his head's not tilted to the side. Okay? You always bring the rifle butt up to your face, not your face down to the rifle. Does that make sense? Always bring the rifle butt up to your face, not your face down to the rifle. If I was to stand like this for an extended period of time, what would happen? I'd fall over, right? Got this equilibrium thing, right? Your head wants to remain upright. Your head wants to remain upright so that your mind can retrieve and process the information as it's designed to be interpreted. Okay? And lastly, his head and neck are relaxed. When his head and neck are relaxed, he'll form what we call like a chipmunk cheek, right? Because the human head weighs on average between 8 and 11 pounds. When you rest your head on the stock, that's actually helping you stabilize the weapon, isn't it? It's helping to hold the weapon still. Because you got 8 to 10 pounds, maybe 12 in some cases as I look around, right? Come on, these jokes aren't that bad. All right, but that's an extra 8 to 10 pounds holding the gun still, isn't it? And if you got it, why not use it? Okay? All right, again, we're talking about the non-firing hand grip. You can place it either on the handguards or the magazine well to provide support and control during firing. Make sure that the pressure, when you pull the gun rearward into the shoulder, make sure that the pressure is constant and consistent. Because if you change the pressures at which you hold the rifle, believe it or not, you can actually change your natural point of aim and change where the rifle's pointed. Okay? You can actually change the alignment of your position and change where the rifle is pointed. Does everybody agree with that? All right. I'm kind of blasting through these because it's a little bit redundant. The firing hand grip. Make sure that the firing hand grip is placed high on the pistol grip. Who's got a rifle I can borrow? Okay, when I say high on the firm, or high and firm grip on the pistol grip, can everybody see where my hand is? And I just said it, how much does this gun weigh? About 8 3/4 pounds with a loaded 30-round magazine in it, right? Okay, so with that being said, I just cleared it, right? Just cleared it. I just took it off. Just took it off safe. I'm going to walk around with a clear rifle placed on semis. Everybody okay with that? All right, just for demonstration purposes. This rifle weighs about 8 1/2 pounds without a magazine in it. It is on semi and it is charged. Okay? We place our hand high on the pistol grip so that will allow us to manipulate this trigger in a manner that lets us not move it. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? If I can carry this rifle around by the weight that it takes to pull the trigger, is it safe to assume that I could very easily move the rifle in position off the target when I pull the trigger? Does everybody understand what I'm asking? If I apply 12 pounds of pressure to this trigger, which might be what it takes to move the trigger, if I apply 12 pounds of pressure to an 8 1/2 pound rifle, is it likely that if I do it incorrectly, the rifle will move? It is, right? Does everybody understand that? So by placing the hand high on the pistol grip and allowing my finger to fall naturally on the trigger, that will allow me to manipulate the trigger in a manner that does not disturb the lay of the rifle on the target. Does that make sense to everybody? Remember, of all the 2 things we talked about that I said were important about this, trigger control was one of them, wasn't it? Okay? So if you're taking notes, this is some good stuff to be writing down. You want the pistol, your grip on the pistol grip to be made up of kind of a firm handshake grip, high on the pistol grip to allow your finger to fall naturally on the trigger and manipulate the trigger such that it does not disturb the lay of the rifle on the target when the trigger is moved. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? How do I manipulate the trigger? Does anybody remember me saying smooth and straight to the rear? Okay. What I want you to do, stick your booger hook up in the air. The one you're going to pull the trigger with. Okay? Now, we've all heard the tip of the finger on the trigger, right? We've all heard that. Now, move your trigger finger to the rear and watch the tip of your finger. Does it move straight to the rear? No. What does it do? It swings along an arc, doesn't it? So I've already determined that I've got to put about 12 pounds of pressure on that trigger to move it, right? And if I put 12 pounds in an arc motion, am I moving straight to the rear? All right, stick your booger hook back up. Now, look on your finger where your finger is bending. Okay? Where your finger bends, the arc is minimal there, isn't it? The sweep of the arc is at its minimum where your finger bends, right? Some people's finger bends at the first joint, some at the second. Y'all are weirdos. I don't make the rules. Okay? But wherever that arc is minimal, if you can get that part of your trigger finger on the trigger, what will that allow you to do? Smooth and straight to the rear, right? Or not disturb the lay of the rifle on the target when you pull the trigger. So, is that portion of your finger the tip of the finger? Not likely, is it? So you see where it's not even your fault, but you've been taught the wrong stuff from the get-go. Right? So, talk about all the stuff you're going to learn today. Hopefully we're learning some stuff, hearing some things in a different way. If you allow your trigger finger to fall naturally on the trigger in a manner that allows the trigger to be manipulated smooth and straight to the rear, you will be more successful. Hold. Okay? All right, so that's the importance of the firing hand grip. And that's why it's important to get the finger moving as close to the line of bore as possible. Keep your hand high up on the pistol grip to allow your finger to move smooth and straight to the rear. All right, your firing elbows. The beauty of the elbows, both the firing and the non-firing elbow, is they're attached to both your firing and your non-firing hands. Okay? Again, that's just how, I didn't design them, but that's how it works. Okay? Now, in the prone position, this is how we transfer the stability of the ground into our prone position, is it not? These are points of contact with the platform. The elbows. If you get the elbows too close together, what happens? You get a little teeter-tottery, right? If you get them too far apart, what happens? You've got no support under the gun, right? So some kind of happy compromise that is consisted of how broad your shoulders are, how long your arms are, how much stuff you got on, some kind of compromise where your elbows are in relation to each other must be reached to provide support underneath the rifle and some stability. Does everybody understand what I'm getting at? It's what works for me might not work for you, but we don't know till we try it, right? All right. That's the other one. All right. Again, this is the crawl, walk, run stuff. We're doing it slick. What he's showing here is the magazine on the ground. How many people use the magazine on the ground for support? How many people don't? Why not? It's too far away. I'll go along with that. It's difficult to get down in position. What else? Malfunction? Totem here? Okay. That's one of those things. If you have good magazines, magazines should not cause malfunction by being rested on the ground. Just saying. It is one of those myths I do like to dispel. If the magazines are good magazines, the magazines on the ground should not cause malfunction. What else? Is that the biggest one we've always heard? Keep the magazines off the ground, prevent malfunction? Is that the biggest one? Try it. You might like it. All right. But the problem with it is as you get closer to the ground, it's hard to get that far down, isn't it? It's hard to look out of the center of your eye getting that far down. Especially when you got all the equipment on, because that equipment raises you farther off the ground, doesn't it? It's hard to get that close to the ground with all the stuff on. But there's some people it might work for. Keep it in your toolbox. Might be something you can use, okay? All right. Spread-legged position. Notice he's lined up directly behind the rifle. That's to absorb recoil and aid in recoil recovery. It's an M16. It doesn't recoil too bad, you know, but some people are more affected than others. What we're trying to show here is see how sprawled out the elbows are? Sprawled out elbows, magazine on the ground. That's something you can do when you don't have a lot of equipment on, okay? It's something, if you can get to that, great. If you can't, we'll find other ways to attack it. All right? Kneeling. This is the fun one. How many people have never shot kneeling until the Army said you had to? About everybody, right? Nobody likes shooting kneeling, do they? What if I told you if you do it correctly, your kneeling position can be just as stable as your prone position? Would you be all right with that? Okay. How many of us are 18? How many being through a couple knee surgeries or back surgeries or right? Okay. So we gotta fight through some of those obstacles. But basically, the Army says one knee has to be on the ground, at least one. How many of you got 3 knees? Right? So you can have 1 or 2 knees on the ground, doesn't matter. What I like to do is I like to sit on my foot. Very similar to the picture on the left, right? That's the left, yeah, okay. See how he's got his non-firing elbow and his non-firing knee lined up? The non-firing elbow sits atop the non-firing knee. Let me back up. What's the purpose of the kneeling position? Why did the Army incorporate a kneeling position? Hasty, right? It's hasty. That's a great answer. We were kind of just figuring out that in the current situation, we're not finding that we can't always shoot from the prone, can we? Because it just doesn't work out that way. So the kneeling position is acquired very quickly. It's easy to get into. It's easy to get out of. And it offers you a better visibility than the prone does while still remaining relatively stable. Okay? So, with that being said, to get into a kneeling position correctly, as you're moving, you drop your firing knee raise your non-firing knee, sit back on your foot, your non-firing arm. We'll deal with it more out on the range, okay? We'll do a great big cool demo out on the range. But essentially, your non-firing elbow and knee, your non-firing elbow rests on your non-firing leg, and your firing knee is the one on the ground, okay? Now, again, once you get down in position, your position's automatically aligned a certain direction, isn't it? So to change the alignment of my position, I don't do this, do I? I move the whole position. Notice I'm pivoting around my firing knee. That's kind of how it works, okay? Once you understand a good kneeling position, you'll be able to manipulate it quickly and effectively to orient it towards the target area. Because when we shoot the qualification course, you're not just shooting at one target, are you? You're shooting at multiple targets, and we'll have to change your natural point of aim. So we'll work with it a little bit once we get out there, but I want to show you some pictures. Now, notice how in this picture he's leaning forward, leaning into it, okay? In this picture you see he's leaning back. Neither is incorrect. Whatever you find more comfortable and allows you to reproduce it effectively, okay? There's no right or wrong. It's whatever works, okay? And what did I say the rules were? At least one knee on the ground, right? Your butt can't be on the ground and at least one knee on the ground. That's the rules, okay? Outside of that, pretty much anything goes. That's the same thing kind of from the back. Show his foot flat on the ground. Can you see it? It's tough to see in this picture. His foot's flat on the ground. The top of his foot is flat on the ground. And this one, you can see the little daylight where he's got his foot arched up and he's sitting on his foot. Again, whatever you can accomplish. Is that legal? Is his butt on the ground? Nope, he's sitting on his foot. He's actually sitting on his foot. So that's legal. I don't like that one because it takes the benefits of the kneeling position away. You can't get into that sitting on your foot very quickly, can you? Can't get out of it very quickly, can you? So while what it does offer is a little bit more stability because you got more of a base on the ground, it eliminates the benefits of the kneeling position and that it's easy and quick to get into and out of. Okay? Not wrong, just different. All right, there's the idominus test. I told you we'd get to it. Side alignment. Somebody give me what the definition of side alignment is. If I get one, are y'all going to say whatever he said? You know, I like to break this down. Okay. What I'm going to do in this, sum it up real quickly, is I'm going to try to create a definition of shooting or definition of marksmanship that we can all agree on. Right? We got about 80 people in here. If I were to ask you all, what's your definition of shooting? How many answers would I get? About 80, right? So are we communicating effectively if I'm talking about shooting and marksmanship as one person to 80 people that are understanding it differently? No, we're not communicating effectively that way, are we? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to establish hopefully a definition that we can all agree on, right? And then when I start talking about shooting and marksmanship, you'll know what I'm talking about. Okay? You've already heard me in regards to trigger control talk about what? Smooth and straight to the rear, right? What's the one word we've heard about in trigger control throughout our whole Army career? What's the one word they've always told us? Squeeze, right? What kind of movement does the word squeeze imply? And those of you that have your heads in the gutter, please keep your mouth shut. Okay? What kind of movement does the word squeeze imply? Slow. What else? Steady. What else? Deliberate. Right? Not anxious. You know, just slow and steady is kind of the one, right? And they always tell you, just squeeze the trigger until the rifle goes off and does what? Surprises you, right? Okay. The first target to come up in the Rets range is what? 50 meter left, right? And we're squeezing the trigger, waiting for the surprise, squeezing the trigger, waiting for the surprise. What's the only surprise we get? Target goes down, and we still got an extra bullet in the gun, right? Okay. This is a piece of equipment that your Uncle Sam has issued you. You have put a magazine in it. That magazine had bullets in it. You put a bullet in the chamber. You rotated the select lever from safe to semi. When you pull the trigger, what's it supposed to do? Shoot. It's supposed to shoot. Where's the surprise in that? It's a surprise when it doesn't shoot, right? Okay? When you stick the key in the ignition of your car and turn the key forward. What's the surprise? When it doesn't start, right? When you tell that piece of equipment what to do, you should not be surprised when it tells you what to, when it does what you tell it, right? Does everybody understand what I'm saying? There is no surprise in initiating a movement on a piece of equipment. It has a desired outcome, okay? So we want the thing to go bang when we pull the trigger. What we don't want to do, or what we're trying to prevent from doing, is to initiating the trigger to move, okay? The trigger will move. You don't have to try to straighten it out. You don't have to try to pull the black off the trigger. You don't have to try to straighten it out to get the thing to go off. If you apply pressure smooth and straight to the rear, the gun will fire, right? You don't have to go, hoo-yah, to get the thing to shoot. That's why they say they want it to surprise you, because they don't want you to anticipate the shot, okay? Well, I anticipate the gun going off when I pull the trigger, and when it doesn't do that, I'm surprised, okay? So I want to wrap your head around some things, not change what you already know, but change how you analyze the information. So the trigger control part is actually the second part of the definition. The first part, the most important part, or one of the most important parts of marksmanship, is actually aiming. We accomplish the aiming process utilizing what? Sight alignment. Have you heard this class before?
Yes.
Okay. Sight alignment, he says. Somebody tell me what sight alignment is. Not all at once. What's sight alignment?
Properly aligning the rear sight, the rear peep sight with the front post.
Properly aligning the rear peep sight with the front post. That's really close. What else is in this picture?
With your eyeball.
Got an eyeball in it, don't it? Got an eyeball in it. Let me demonstrate why that's important. I'm gonna borrow your stick again. Is that okay? Looky there, it didn't load it since the last time I saw it. Okay, are the sights on this rifle aligned? They are in a fixed relationship with each other, are they not? Are the sights in this rifle aligned then? How do I know that? Is it because I'm just a smart guy? Is it because I got 80 people telling me they're aligned? How do I know these sights are aligned? Well, that's anticipating that I'm a smart guy by looking at it, right? And knowing that they're in a fixed relationship with each other. But in order for me to be certain that these sights are aligned, what must I do? I must check. Because I'm from Missouri, you got to show me, right? How do I check to see if these sights are aligned? By placing my dominant eye on the stock, or my head on the stock in a manner that allows my dominant eye to look through the center of the rear sight aperture and focus on the top center edge of the front sight post, right? Am I checking the alignment of the sights by doing that? I'm ensuring their alignment that way, right? I know they're aligned right here, but I don't know where the rifle's pointed until I do what? Until I check the sight alignment. Until I check the sight alignment. Without looking through the sights of this thing, I don't know where the rifle's pointed, do I? Let me borrow a scorecard. Let me do another quick demonstration. I got somebody's scorecard here. All right. I'm going to roll it up into a little tube. All right. Now, when I look through this tube, say at the exit sign over the back wall, I got this exit sign right in the middle of my tube. If I could cause a projectile to come out of this tube, could I get consistent hits on the exit sign? Yes or no?
Yes.
We all agree that I could, yes? All right, what about now? I haven't moved. I haven't moved the tube. Yeah, I'm sure. I had to check though, right? Because when I'm not looking through the tube, what don't I know without absolute certainty? I don't know where the tube's pointed, do I? What does this tube represent on your rifle? I'm causing a projectile to come out of it. It represents the barrel, does it not? Now, because I cannot look through the barrel on my rifle and fire it, it's a technique, not necessarily the preferred, right? I have sights on it, right? I have sights on the barrel. So I can look through the sights to make sure I know where my barrel's pointed, right? So what don't I know if I'm not checking sight alignment? What don't I know if I'm not looking through the sight? I don't know where the barrel's pointed, do I? Now, let me ask you another quick question. It's kind of a play on words. Thank you very much. Sorry about the deformation. When I point a rifle at a target, where does the bullet go? Say it again.
Where the barrel's pointed.
The projectile will always go where?
Where the barrel's pointed.
Where the barrel is pointed. Can anybody dispute that? Given the effects of gravity and air resistance, a proven fact is that the projectile will always, without fail, go where the barrel is pointed. Does everybody understand that? Is that an important safety consideration as well? Because the bullet will always go where the barrel is pointed. So, ergo, bringing all this together, if I want to be successful with a rifle, if I want to be effective and successful with firing a rifle at a target, what must I always know? Where the barrel is pointed, right? Does everybody see the importance of that? In order for me to know that I'm going to be effective with a rifle and hitting targets, I must always know where the barrel is pointed. Capiche? Does everybody understand the relevance of that? Now, going back, how do I know where the barrel is pointed? By checking my sight alignment. Does everybody understand that? So sight alignment defined is the top center edge of the front side post centered horizontally and vertically in the rear side aperture in alignment with the shooting eye. Does that make sense? Does everybody see the little straight line? Let's see if I can do it. That straight line right there? Does everybody see it? That is sight alignment as best as PowerPoint will let me draw it. It's the top center edge of the front side post, centered horizontally and vertically in the rear side aperture in relation to your shooting eye. Why is sight alignment so important? Can everybody see this picture? Is the front side post clear and in focus? Where are the shots? Kind of looks like a mouse been running through my underwear drawer, don't it? You guys will get that sooner or later, I promise. Okay? Now, in contrast to this picture, what's in focus now? Front side post is in focus, right? When the front side post is in focus, what have you accomplished? Sight alignment. Say it from the mountain, brother.
Sight alignment.
Sight alignment has been accomplished when we focus on the front side post. Does that make sense? Let's do a quick hands-on experiment. Everybody stick your hitchhiking thumb out at arm's length. Now, with the other hand, I want you to make a rear side aperture stick in front of your shooting eye. Okay? I want you to point at me with your front sight, because that's what you got now. Now I want you to find that little speck of dirt underneath your thumbnail and focus hard on it. Can everybody see how your thumb is center mass on my body? You don't have to look for center mass. That thing you got, the gray matter between the ears, it does that for you. All you have to do is focus on the front sight. Everybody see that? If you do not focus on the front sight, what don't you know? You don't know where the barrel's pointed, right? And I digress. If you don't know where the barrel's pointed, you get a shot group that looks like that, right? Does that make sense? You know, the frustrating part of this game is we go out to a rifle, and we're at the top of the evolutionary ladder, are we not? See these? We the only ones that got them. Opposable thumbs. We're at the top of the food chain, baby. Don't swim with sharks, and you'll remain there. Okay? This is it. This is as good as it gets. Top of the food chain. Okay? The frustrating part of marksmanship is we pick up a piece of equipment, and because we are superior mind and body, we think we can employ this piece of equipment with absolute effectiveness and success, right? We're soldiers, for crying out loud. This is a task. You charge me with a task I will accomplish, right? It's a piece of equipment. I can operate this. Same thing with the DVD player you brought home, right? I can play DVD, but you can't set the time on that thing without opening a manual, right? You laugh. A lot of people got DVD players blinking 12, don't they? A lot of people do. I don't make the rules. So if you're so adamant on getting the clock right on your DVD player that you open an instruction manual, and guys, I know how hard it is, okay? I got a lot of virgin instruction manuals in my house, and a lot of broken equipment too. Okay? But if we go so far as to open the instruction manual on the DVD player to figure out how to set the time, why won't we crack a manual and learn the stuff to employ this piece of equipment correctly? If you are not focused on the front sight post to achieve sight alignment, you don't know where the rifle's pointed. And if you don't know where the rifle's pointed and you pull the trigger, what don't you know? You don't know where that bullet's going either. And that is a safety consideration that we're not taking into account, right? Does everybody understand? So it all kind of goes back and forth, but my point is, don't get so distracted with the breathing. Don't get so distracted with the steady position. If you stay focused on the front side post and execute trigger control smooth and straight to the rear, you're going to find the shot groups get smaller. And once the shot groups get smaller, you use little twisty turny things on the gun. Those are called sight adjustment knobs. We'll get to that in a minute. And you move the shot groups to the center of the target. That's what we call zeroing. Okay? But you have to be able to shoot small shot groups first. And you understand how to get there now? So, the whole definition of shooting. You only have to do two things in order to be effective on a rifle range. Properly point the rifle at the target and fire the rifle without moving it. But the only two things you have to do, two firing tasks that I charge upon you. Only two things you have to do to be successful are to properly point the rifle at the target and fire the rifle without moving it. Okay? So, the definition of shooting. The definition of shooting that I told you we would all get to is marksmanship or shooting is properly pointing the rifle at the target using what? Consistent sight alignment and firing the rifle without moving it, utilizing smooth what? Trigger control. Does that make sense? Does it make sense? Is it different than anything else you've ever heard? Fundamentally, is it different? No, it's not. It's the same thing. Okay? But I didn't say anything at all about holding the gun still or watching your breathing, did I? Because if you do those two things, if the rifle's pointed at the target and you don't move it when you pull the trigger, guess what? You know where the rifle's pointed, you know where the bullet's going, don't you? Are you effective? When I ask you, what your definition of shooting now is, we should all have something that sounds pretty similar, right? Do we remember it, or was the break 10 minutes too long? What was the definition? Sound off. You're a staff sergeant. Let's hear it.
Properly point the weapon utilizing sight alignment and execute a trigger squeeze with a smooth, straight back motion.
That's really close. Is that good enough? We all know what she means? Fire the rifle without moving it, utilizing smooth trigger control, right? Okay, that's the gist of it. Does everybody understand what I mean? That's all you got to do to be successful? Really? I want you to cook off all the excess BS that we've heard throughout the career. Throughout everything we've ever been taught and told, cook it off, boil it down. This is what we're trying to do, right? Yes? We're trying to know where the bullet's going. We're trying to point the gun at the target, know where the bullet's going, know where the gun's pointed, fire without moving it. It's just that simple, right? The problem with marksmanship, as I alluded to earlier, it's such a simple piece of equipment. You put bullets in it, you pull the trigger, the bad guys fall down, right? That's how it happens in the movies, right? So when we see these overpaid actors doing things that they don't normally do, because none of them like guns anyway, it's just funny that we take it as a given that when you pick up a gun and put bullets in it, that the target's just going to fall down, right? It's not that simple. We make the thing too complicated because we're too worried about stuff like breathing. Am I breathing right? Are you alive? Then you're breathing right. That's just how it works. I don't make the rules. That's just how it is. Okay? Now, the reason breathing is ever brought up is because they want you to establish a pattern in your breathing. Okay? Like when you're running, you need to get a lot of oxygen in and a lot of oxygen out. So you establish a pattern of breathing as you're running, right? The reason it's important in marksmanship, and the reason they even bring it up, is because when you're laying in position and you're breathing, what is the gun doing? The gun's moving, right? So who in here needs somebody to tell them to stop breathing to see the gun stop moving? I'm not seeing any hands go up. You don't need to be told to stop breathing, right? If the gun's moving when you're breathing, and you stop breathing, and the gun stops moving, A plus B equals C, right? Same thing with like threading a needle. Anybody ever tried to thread a needle? You ever find yourself holding your breath when you're threading a needle? I'm telling you, the gray matter, it doesn't need colors. It works. Let it do what it wants to do. If you're trying to fire a shot without the gun moving, and you're breathing and the gun's moving, your brain will tell you to stop breathing. And guess what? After you shoot the shot, your brain will tell you to start breathing again too. It works. Let it do its job. Okay? All right. But with all that being said, the final part of the execution of the shot process is follow through. Right? Nothing in life comes without follow through. Sergeants, privates, you know what I'm talking about. You got to follow through with them privates, don't you? Follow through. Basketball, golf swing, baseball swing, it doesn't matter. Everything in life requires follow through. What does follow through with shooting? What is follow through as it pertains to marksmanship? I won't ask you a question without giving you the answer. What's the first part of follow through? What's it say? Avoid reaction to recoil. What's that mean? Don't jump when you pull the trigger. Now, let me tell you that there's an explosion near about 60,000 psi that's happening about, yay far away from your face. It's pretty normal to have a reaction, right? It's pretty normal to have a reaction. But understand what's going to happen when the booger picker goes straight to the rear. What's going to happen when you pull the trigger? There's going to be an explosion about, yay from your face, right? So know that. And I will tell you that the more you shoot, the more comfortable you will get with that explosion. Until you have one of these things blow up in your face, it's really not a big deal. Once you get one blow up in your face, it becomes a bigger deal. Has anybody ever had one of these blow up in their face? Just one? How bad was it? What happened? Well, that's why it's a rule. That's why it's a rule. What happened? Aha! Yep. Yep, that's what happens. That's what happens. Okay, good to know. That's why the muzzle's got to be clear. And, all laughing aside, I'm glad you weren't hurt, okay? But for future reference, when the part that's supposed to be pointing at the bad guy goes in the dirt, check it before you shoot it, okay? Obviously, it's not feasible in a training, it's not exactly a practical in a bounding situation, but there's time and a place where you got to take a knee and make sure that gets done, all right? Good. So it's a bigger deal now, though, now that that's happened, right? Okay? But you can fight through it. You're a soldier. We'll be all right. All right, so we're avoiding reacting to recoil. What's next? And understand that these aren't next, okay? This is a continuous process. We're going to keep our head in firm contact with the stock. We're going to keep our focus through the rear side on the front side, right? Pressure on the trigger. How many people have been told to hold the trigger to the rear until recoil is stopped? That's a good idea. Maintain positive control of the trigger. Hold the trigger to the rear until recoil is stopped. Once recoil is stopped, slowly release the trigger until you hear what? The click. Because there's a whole lot of movement in that trigger that you don't have to go through again if you don't have to, right? If you're going to be firing follow-on shots, which means shots after the first one, right? Just hold the trigger to the rear and slowly release the trigger until you feel the metallic click and then begin the pressure on the trigger again. Okay? Also, you're looking through the rear aperture or the scope. Well, scope for those of us that got them, right? Keep your muscles relaxed. Don't tense up. Once you start tensing up, what are you going to start doing? You're going to lose your support, right? You're not gaining support by adding muscular tension. You only create a disaster when you do that. And lastly, only release the trigger until recoil is stopped. And again, if you're firing follow-on shots, only release it until you hear what? The metallic click. All right. So are there any questions about marksmanship and the fundamentals of the principles of shooting? Do we all You have a warm and fuzzy about that now? All right, well, let's talk about some of the physics, some of the science that goes into shooting. All right, there are a couple of parts to a trajectory, a couple of things that make up a trajectory. What is a trajectory? The path of the bullet, the flight path of the bullet. How do we determine the trajectory? Couple of things that we have control of is where the gun's pointed, right? The sight setting on the rifle, and ultimately where the gun's pointed, or what we can do to affect the trajectory. We take ammunition and environmental conditions as a given or as a standard. Okay? So, in this slide we have the red line, or called the line of sight. This is from your eye through the center of the rear sight aperture to the top center edge of the front sight post. This creates the line of sight. This is how we know where the gun is pointed, right? Does everybody understand that? The green line. The green line represents what? The line of bore. This is if you were to look down the center of the barrel as compared to the sights, this is what you would see. Okay? So notice these two lines aren't exactly parallel, right? What does that mean? At some point, because they're not parallel, they will intersect somewhere down the line, right? Okay. What that also means is that when you're looking at the sights, and the sights are horizontal or parallel to the ground, the barrel's got a little bit of elevation on it, right? Do we know why that is?
Everything comes up, must come down.
Everything that goes up must come down. Okay? Now, does a bullet have lift capability? When a bullet comes out of a horizontal barrel, what happens? It starts falling. That's exactly right. Does the bullet ever rise above horizontal? If it's fired from a horizontal barrel, a barrel that's parallel to the ground, does it ever rise above on its own that horizontal line? No. Does everybody understand that? That it's very important that we all understand that. Okay? The bullet does not have a lift capability. It will never, on its own, just take off, unless it is deformed somehow. Okay? And if it's deformed, crazy shit happens. What can I say? All right? But a bullet on its own will never rise above the attitude of the barrel. Capiche? Regardless of the elevation of the barrel, the bullet will always fall away from the line of bore. So, with that being said, we incorporate all three aspects of a trajectory. That being the line of sight, the line of bore, and the bullet trajectory itself. The purpose of zeroing is to get those three, the line of sight, the line of bore, and the trajectory, to converge in a desired location. Does everybody understand that? The term zero, where it comes from, the term zero comes from when you measure the point of aim versus the point of impact, the measurement is zero. You follow me? You see how if you follow the blue line versus the red line, how the point of aim, the red line, and the point of impact, the blue line, right here converge, right? Or their measurement, the distance from one to the other is measured as zero, correct? Back here you can see that measurement is not zero. Does everybody understand that? So that's where the term comes from. The term zero comes from the actual thing happening right there. Okay? So, again, all the parts put together. The line of the bore, because we have to elevate the muzzle to get the bullet to intersect the line of sight at 300 yards, or 300 meters, right? The line of bore is pointed off into space. But because the bullet will always fall away from the line of bore, never rising above the line of bore, everybody see that? That's how we determine a zero. We get the trajectory to line up or intersect with the line of sight. Now, in this particular example, we are getting a what? We are zeroing for what distance? 300 meters. Now, if you pay close attention, notice what happens back here. What's happening back here? They're intersecting again, aren't they? Or actually, they're intersecting there and intersecting again at 300 meters. Now, what is the zeroing process as prescribed in the manual? Say again? At 25 meters, what is the zeroing process? Well, first we group, and then we move the group to the center. Okay, got that. As far as what do we set our sights at? 300 plus 1, right? 300 plus 1. Why are we going up the 1? Can anybody answer that? To adjust for the, yeah, I got it. What would you? Because it's at 25 meters, right? The bullet, the line of sight, and the trajectory, when zeroed at 300 meters, actually intersect at 33 meters, not at 25. You guys know that? I'm giving you pearls here. Stuff you can impress your friends with at parties. You're going to the wrong parties if you can't impress your friends with this stuff. I'm telling you. Okay? It's because the line of sight and the trajectory actually intersect at 33 meters, not at 25 meters. That's why we have to come up the 1 click, to raise the trajectory away from the line of sight. Okay? Move it closer. More on that later. So, by zeroing at 25 meters, if we're in a perfect world and could do it at 33 meters, would we in effect be establishing both a 33 meter and a 300 meter zero? Now, yes, absolutely. Because the trajectory, the things we take it at a given, that gravity still works, right? You don't believe me? Gravity still works. But because gravity still works and we're taking the ammunition as a standard, the trajectory based on velocity and barrel length and everything is such that if you zero at 25 meters, making the adjustment on the rear sight, you have obtained a 300 meter zero. Bless you. What are some of the advantages to zeroing at 25 meters? Who what? Shorter distance to walk, absolutely. What else? Tighter shot groups. What? Who said that? Windage. Why is windage important? Because at 25 meters, the shot isn't going to be displaced by the wind. Is that what you meant? Okay, that's true. And at 25, can it? Will it be? Absolutely. Just not as much. Okay? In relation to the scale on the target, it's actually pretty accurate at 25 meters. But it's easier to establish what they call a no-wind zero at 25 meters because it takes quite a bit of wind to move the bullet at 25 meters. Okay? So that's one of the reasons. Plus, it's a shorter distance to walk. And in theory, the throughput of soldiers on a 25 meter zero range should be much higher than that, on a 300 meter range. So logistically, it's simpler. It's easier to maintain. It's easier to herd cats on a 25 meter range than it is on a 300 meter range. Got it. So that's why we do it. Okay? Simplify the process. Everybody understand? How does everybody feel about this stuff now? We cool? Does it make sense? Everybody has anybody ever gotten to this page in the manual and seen this stuff? It's in there. It's in there. You'd be surprised how many of your peers do not know that a bullet does not have lift capability. How many of them think the bullet just does whatever it wants? Okay, this is the process. Grouping. Okay? The grouping process. This is an exercise in and of itself. It is not just to see how fast you can blast through it. Because as a reservist, you might get to shoot 50 rounds a year. Why don't you make the most of those 50 rounds, right? This is the only opportunity you get to train with your offensive and defensive capability, correct? Make the most of it. Take advantage of all the ammunition you're given to achieve the zero process. If you're in a leadership position, give your soldiers an opportunity to train. Give them encouragement. Teach them to the standard for grouping. When you have identified that you have achieved the grouping standard, what is it? 6 consecutive shots in a 4 centimeter circle area, right? Is that hard? No, it's not. It's not. It's not hard to shoot a 4 centimeter shot group at 25 meters. Okay? Don't be satisfied with mediocrity here. To achieve the standard for zero, in order to call somebody zeroed, what do you have to accomplish? Where at in the circle? Where in the circle? Anywhere in the circle. Anywhere in the circle, right? Anywhere in the circle. 5 out of 6. Anywhere in the circle is established as a standard for being zero, right? How many people are satisfied with 5 out of 6 anywhere in the circle. Let me go back. Let me show you a quick example. Say your 5 of 6 are right here. Okay? Technically, you've met the standard, haven't you? But if you have a shot group that's this size, or if you're in a leadership position and you have a soldier that's shooting a shot group this size, even though they met the standard, are you going to leave that there? Or you make a correction to center the shot group in the silhouette? Let me show you why you need to. Because if you go back to this slide, and remember that your shot groups are up here on the silhouette, even though you made 5 out of 6, where are all those shots here? Up in here, aren't they? Because right down here, they're in the same spot. Follow me? And that's with a well-executed shot. That's with excellent sight alignment and trigger control. You have already displaced the shot from center this far. Already, without anything else going wrong. Without any wind picking up, or without any not so perfect shot process. Okay, you're already this far away from center. Are you increasing or decreasing your hit probability by leaving the shot up here? Decreasing. Are we being effective with our offensive and defensive capability that way? No. So you need to move the shot groups close to, this is what I like to say. I like them to be centered in the bottom of the 4 centimeter circle. Why do I say the bottom? Because of the trajectory. At the midway point, at about 175, 180 meters, the trajectory is at its peak, which depending on environmental conditions and the condition of your rifle can vary anywhere from 7 to 14 inches above the line of sight. Above the line of sight. I say again, above the line of sight. So if you're aiming center mass on a target that's 40 inches tall, how much is above the top center edge of the front side post? 20 inches. So if you're 7 to 14 inches above, where are you in relation? You're up in here, aren't you? You have decreased your hit probability by about 40%. And that's not what we want to do, is it? So by zeroing in the bottom half of the 4 centimeter circle, like I showed you, this trajectory moves to here. So that your 7 to 14 inches above line of sight are now actually down in here, right? Actually down in here rather than up in here. Does that make sense? And now, have we increased our hit probability? By doing nothing more than understanding, a better understanding of the zero process, right? All we've done is increase our hit probability by a better understanding of the zero process. Does everybody understand it? All we've done is move the trajectory closer to the line of sight. Now, understand, yes, you're zeroed in the bottom of the 4 centimeter circle. And you're zeroed for where? 300 meters, right? So, you're technically still getting a hit in the bottom of the 4 centimeter circle at 300, right? Have you hurt anything out there? But you've increased your hit probability at 250, at 200, at 150, at 100, and even at 50, right? Just by a better understanding of the zero process. Everybody got that? Hua? Can I get a hua from the old guys? Is that cool? Have we ever learned that? Anybody ever told us that? No. All right. Let's talk about some goofy stuff. Let's talk about some goofy stuff. Who in here has heard of a minute of angle? A few of you. Does anybody know where it comes from? Spout it out if you know it. Go ahead. Okay. Basically, every degree in a compass is made up of 60 minutes. Okay, just like the little 60 minutes thing. All right, they use it a lot in navigation. Not so much with your leather personnel carriers, but in aircraft and nautical vehicles, right? Because they travel a greater distance than my LPCs are walking. All right, so it's used in nautical and aerospace navigation. But how we use it in marksmanship is our sights. The sights on the rifle are calibrated in minutes of angle. So that as our bullet travels across distance, I can manipulate how far my bullet moves, either up or down or left and right, with an understanding of minutes of angle and how the sights are calibrated. Okay? Am I speaking Chinese to anybody yet? We got it? We cool? Now, this is what a minute of angle translates to. A minute of angle is approximately 1 inch for every 100 yards traveled. So 1 minute of angle at 600 yards is how far? 6 inches, just like the board says, right? No, that's 2 minutes at 300. Okay. But you get the idea, right? 1 inch for every 100 yards traveled. It's a rough estimate. It's actually 1.014, but as we say in the business, it's close enough for government work. Okay? Close enough for what they're paying me for. So it's about 1 inch for every 100 yards traveled. So if 1 minute of angle at 200 yards is 2 inches, how much is 2 minutes of angle at 200 yards? 4 inches. Everybody here's got a 3rd grade education. This is not hard math. Okay? This is easy stuff. Just get your head wrapped around it right. Okay? So, I will tell you that the windage knob on the rear sight of your rifle moves in half-minute increments. So at 100 yards, how many clicks do you have to move the sight to move 1 inch? 2 clicks. Does everybody understand that? Because 2 halves make a whole. How many clicks to move 3 minutes? 6. Okay? How many clicks to move 3 inches at 100 yards? 6, right? 6. Everybody got it? Oh, we got it? It's new information. Absorb it, let it in, let it marinate, okay? Because this is what we're going to be talking in. As I've come to discover about Kansas, it blows in Kansas. Is that because Nebraska sucks? Whoa, sorry, they use that joke in the Midwest about Michigan blowing and Ohio sucking. I don't know. So I just thought I'd see if it worked here. But anyway, it's windy here, isn't it? Does the wind ever not move the bullet? Only when it's not blowing, right? A good friend of mine said it ain't never not worth nothing. Okay? There's, for you grammar people in here, that's like a triple entendre of double negatives. So double, triple, quadruple negatives. But okay, these are the parts of the sights that are attached to your rifle. Since we've already determined that is a technique, but not necessarily the preferred, to look through the barrel while we're firing this thing, we got these sights, right? The front sight post, that's the picture on the left. Okay, for some of you, this may be the first time you've seen one. That's another joke. Okay, we're going to be looking at front sight posts this week. All right, this is what it looks like. Notice the edges of this one are square, like they're supposed to be. Okay, each click on the front sight post of your M16A2 or M16A3 or even your M16A4. Anybody in here got an M16A4? That's the full length with carrying the handguard with the quad rail on the front and removable carry handle. Nobody got those? Do you? Okay. Each click is 1 1/4 minutes on the front sight. Each click on the front sight of an M16, A2, A3, or A4 is 1 1/4 minutes. Okay? Now, just for information for you to impress your friends at parties with, an M4 or an M4A1, the shorter barrel version, each click is worth 1.5 minutes. Why is it different? Because of the shorter barrel. The shorter barrel makes the angle sharper, doesn't it? Creates the angle sharper, so it's more, actually displaces the bullet more with the same rotation. Now, how many of you people can see 1/4 inch at 100 yards in your shot placement? Not too many. I can tell you I can't, and if I can't, I'm going to lump us all together. The legend might be able to. Can you see 1/4 minute at 100 yards? Maybe not. Okay, so it's just for information. Okay, stuff to impress your friends with at parties. The front sight adjustments are 1 1/4 minutes of angle per click. So at 100 yards, how far is that going to move the strike of the round? Say it out like you know it. 1 1/4. Very good. Does everybody understand that? 2 clicks is going to move you how much? 2.5. Everybody see how it works? 1 click at 300 yards is going to move you how far? Roughly. Yeah, 3 3/4 inches. Okay, we got it? We understand it? All right, let's talk about the elevation wheel. That's the thing on the back of the gun that nobody ever touches, right? What's our baseline setting for that thing? 300, right? How do we know it's a 300-meter setting? Say again? It says it, but if you turn it all the way in another direction, it says it again. How do we know which time it's at 300? It's all the way down. Does everybody understand that? If you don't know what I'm talking about, pick up your rifle. Okay? If you don't understand what I'm talking about, now's a good time to learn. In the classroom. That's why we're here. Your backup iron sight's going to be a little bit different, but we can work with that. Okay? If you look at your rear sight knob, or your elevation wheel, it's got two numbers on it. An 8, a slash, and a 3, right? That isn't 8/3. It is not, I say again, it is not 8/3. It is either an 800-meter setting or a 300-meter setting. Please refer to it as such. Do not say 8/3. You are set at either 800 or 300. Do we all understand? Do we all understand? This is one of my biggest pet peeves. And if you want to hear me get ugly, call it 8/3. Just do it. Okay? It's not 8/3. It's either an 800-meter setting or a 300-meter setting. How many people in here have shot at 800 meters? Have you really? Good for you. Did you hit anything? Takes practice. Takes practice. Oh, and something I wanted to add to, when he said he's the national long-range champion, that is comprised of 5 separate 1,000-yard matches. 1,000 yards with a service rifle, with stick sights.
He's done it as well. So.
Yeah, but it's cooler when he did it, because he's the legend. But that is awesome stuff, to shoot a service rifle at 1,000 yards and be effective. Not only be effective, but be at the top of your peers. That's really cool. So I got to watch him do it. So if nobody here has shot 800 meters, we should never have that thing set at 800 meters, right? That's kind of where I was going with that. But once you leave here and understand how this thing works, don't be afraid to reach up and grab that knob and turn it to 4, 5, 6, or 7, because you know what those numbers mean, right? That is basically, when you zero at 300 meters, you are establishing a 0 for those distances. Does everybody understand that? So when you're 0 to 300 and you got a really cool guy that says that target's 500 meters away, guess what? Reach up and turn a little twisty thing until you see the number 5, and you now have what is known as a 0 for a 500-meter target, right? Cool? Has anybody ever done that? Anybody tried that? When you shot at 800 meters, did you turn the sight? Did you? Good for you. Gold star. Yes, question. Every rifle course in the Marine Corps. Yep. Guess what you're going to do this week? Hope so. Hope so. All right. So anyway, those move for the M16A2 and A3. This is important. M16A2 and M16A3. Those clicks move in 1 minute per click. 1 minute of angle per click. Okay? 1 minute of angle per click. 1 minute of angle per click on your elevation wheel. That's the rear sight attached to your rifle. For those of you with an M16A2 or an M16A3. Now, for those of you with an M16A4, with a carrying handle on it. With a carrying handle on an M16A4, why is that number different? Huh? Close. That's part of it. The M16A4 shares the removable carrying handle with what? With the M4. The M16A4 was an afterthought to the M4. So the carrying handle was adapted, all the rules for the carrying handle were adapted to the M16A4, whereas they were created for the M4. Got it? The thread pitch is different in the rear sight on the carrying handle that is removable. Okay? And it was adapted for the M4. Notice how the adjustments are the same? They're only different for this one. It's because this carrying handle was The rules changed when it was adapted to this firearm because the M16A4 was an afterthought to the M4. The initial purchase of M4s created a feedback of lost muzzle velocity, accuracy that wasn't as good as the longer barrel version. So, but they like the removable carrying handle because Joe likes stuff you can put too much stuff that's unusable on. Okay, so like be able to put a scope on it, do this, do that with it, right? So they took the likable feature of the M4 and put it on the other likable feature, which is the long barrel, and now the rules changed. Okay, if you've ever seen an M16A4, it's got a little Z stamped on it, doesn't it? That little Z stands for 0. That's where the rear sight is set on an M16A4 for 0. It's actually up 2 or 3 clicks from 300 as compared to just 1 that we're used to, right? So a little bit of difference, but that's why it is what it is. The windage knob on the M4 is the only one that's different, okay? And again, it's because of the shorter barrel, right? When you make the click, the angle gets sharper. That's why the adjustments are bigger on the M4. Repeat. Everybody got it? So, battle sight 0 setting for 25 meters. For everybody here, it's going to be 3 plus 1. So 300 meters, bottomed all the way out, and turn so it's at 3, and come up 1 click from there, right? Does everybody understand that? What's the battle sight 0 setting for 25 meters? 300 plus 1. Good to go. If you have an M16A4 with a carrying handle, you're going to come up 2 clicks from 300 or to where you see the letter Z for 0. And if you have an M4, you're going to be set at 300. Okay? There's no requirement to change it for the 300 for an M4. Most everybody in here is shooting M16A2s, right? Who's got something different? Who what?
I think we do. Our rear sights are different.
You've got a flip-up sight. You got an M4 and M16A4.
Got M4.
You got M4s? Okay. Yep. You got little short ones. All right. You know where you're supposed to be set? I won't ask you a question without giving you the answer. Nope. All right. So, are there any questions about this slide? We got it? All right. Let's talk about wind a little bit, since we already did. Remember I said it ain't never not worth nothing? Remember I said that? This is what happens as you shoot a bullet without correcting for the wind. Notice the wind flag. Again, this is a PowerPoint representation of what's going to happen tomorrow. But pay attention to the wind flag. Pay attention to the indicators that tell you what direction the wind is blowing, how hard it's blowing, and think about it. A 10 mile an hour full value wind. Full value wind is one that's classified for coming either from your immediate left or your immediate right. Okay? None of this quarter value stuff, but directly from either side is known as a full value wind. Okay? Just a 10 mile an hour full value wind at 300 meters will displace a 62 grain green tip bullet 12 inches. How much is 12 inches? 1 foot. Okay? If your target is 20 inches wide and you're aiming center mass, did you just hit the target? Missed by 2 inches. There's a smart one. Missed by 2 inches, didn't you? So if we missed by 2 inches, we're obviously not increasing our hit probability, right? And if just a 10 mile an hour full value wind will displace the bullet 12 inches, do you think we want to do something about it? What are we going to do about it? You're going to turn the windage knob, aren't you? So if you know, follow along with me, here we go. If you know that 12 inches is how many minutes at 300 yards? 4 minutes, right? 4 minutes. How many half-minute clicks is that? 8. So, here we go. This is how it works. You know that a 10 mile an hour full value wind is going to displace the bullet 12 inches. So you put 8 clicks of windage on. Do you turn the windage knob into the wind or with the wind? Into the wind, right? Or just like that, right? That's how it works. That's exactly how it works. It causes the barrel to be pointed in a direction change the orientation of the barrel by adjusting the sights so that you point the gun into the wind and let the wind blow the bullet back onto the target. Isn't that neat? Now, if you were to make that correction, how many more targets do you think you will hit than if you did nothing at all? A lot more of them, right? So, there you go. It ain't never not worth nothing. Okay? That's profound. Feel free to use that one. It ain't never not worth nothing. That's gonna go around the world, okay? It ain't never not worth nothing. So that means if the wind's blowing from the right side, are you gonna do nothing about it, or are you gonna do something about it? Do something, right? Odds are, if you do something, it's not gonna be wrong. Okay? The only wrong is not doing anything. Does everybody understand that? Now, here's a little trick that will help us. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? All right. I've got a little formula that I'll share a little bit later, but that's kind of the gist of it. Okay? So does everybody understand how the wind works? How many minutes of angle the sights move? Those kinds of things? We'll go over some different stuff in a little bit later on when we get on a range. I got some stuff I'll share with you that kind of makes it a little easier to understand. Actually, it's in the next class. Yes, go ahead. About 12 inches for a 10-mile-an-hour full value wind at 300 yards. That's pretty close. That's pretty close. The old lighter bullet moved about 15. The new bullet moves about 12. So a little bit heavier bullet saves you a little bit of wind drift. But what questions do you have about anything you've heard in the first class you've gotten so far? No questions at all? Really? Go ahead. Did everybody hear the question? The question was, is it safe to assume that for a 10-mile-an-hour wind, the displacement is 12 inches? Is it safe to assume that for a 20-mile-an-hour wind, it'd be 24 inches? Absolutely be safe to assume that. Now, what I will also tell you is that if you look at this chart, you see as the bullet gets farther away from the muzzle, the displacement is greater, right? What is that telling you? The bullet is losing its resistance to defend itself against the wind the farther away from the shooter. Okay? So if I'm shooting a 100 or a 25 meter shot, that arc's not going to be very serious, is it? But if I'm shooting 1,000 yards, like the legend here, how much do I have to take into account? A lot. Because a 10-mile-an-hour full value wind at 1,000 yards will move the bullet 100 inches. At 1,000 yards, a full value wind is worth 1 minute of angle for every mile an hour with a 308 bullet. And you can put that in your pipe and smoke it. Because I've seen it. I've seen it. I've seen things at 1,000 yards that I'm not allowed to tell small children. Okay? But yes, it's absolutely safe to assume. But it's also safe to assume that if you have to move the bullet 4 inches at 200 yards, how much are you going to have to move it at 600 yards? Roughly 3 times as much, and then add some, right? Because the bullet's losing its resistance. So it all goes into effect with all of those factors. It all has to take into account each and every one of those factors. You know, the wind's blowing here but not blowing down there. So it can be tricky, but again, it's always worth something. Okay, and it bears paying attention to, especially since we're going to be shooting at distance here. Okay, we're going to be shooting out to 400 yards. So it's important to pay attention to this stuff, because from what I understand, the range faces east, and the wind's coming from the north, so that kind of sounds like it's a full-blown crosswind, right? Go ahead, sir.
How do you adjust for gust?
Yes. The question was, how do you adjust for gusts? Well, I've got a little chart I'll show in a little bit, but the question was, how do you adjust for gusts? Well, once you get to that level, you can do what they call Kentucky windage, or hold-offs, right? If you look at the target, let me get there. If you look at the target, this is a really good slide for it. If you look at the target being 20 inches wide, right? And I just said that a 10-mile-an-hour full value wind is going to displace the shot how far? 12 inches. So if I place the front side post instead of center mass, if I put it at the edge, if I just give it a 10-inch hold off, if I increase my hit probability, Absolutely. Have I had to touch a windage knob? No. If you break the target down into quarters, and the target's 20 inches wide, how much is each hold up? 5 inches. So if I'm holding center mass here, okay, and I want to hold off 5 inches, we call it a hold off 1, right? Or hold off 2, right? Everybody understand that? Does that answer your question? Does it make it understandable? Does everybody see what I'm going with that? You don't have to do the math. All you got to know is that, you know what? Now, here's the problem with doing it that way. Here's the problem with doing it that way. I've stood up here for 2.5 hours talking to you about top center edge of the front side post, center and rear side aperture, and telling you how the gray matter between your ears is going to make center mass a natural reaction, right? What's not natural about a hold up? It's not center mass. It's not what we're teaching ourselves, right? Right, and you start looking at the target, not the front sight, and the wheels start coming off, and it comes apart like a Chinese motorcycle. Okay? No offense to anybody who rides a Chinese motorcycle. Okay? So, yes, it works, but you have to have an understanding of what makes it work. Okay? We're not going into solving quantum physics on the first day of algebra, right? We're going to crawl, walk, run. We're going to learn what it's like to point a well-aimed shot. We're going to execute well-aimed shots, and we're going to execute more of them. And then we'll get into this stuff when we get to, okay? So, what questions do you have? What questions do you have about anything else I've talked about? The only question, yes, go ahead.
How can you use a minute adjustment when we don't want to use metric for distances?
Yes.
Is it just easier for minutes?
Everybody hear the question? Why do we use minutes? Okay. The question was, why do we use minutes of angle and yards, and the Army uses metric distances? The short answer is, remember I said it started in nautical navigation? Remember that's kind of where minutes of angle have become more important? Well, back when America was American, we weren't using metric ranges. We always just referred to it as in inches, you know, and yards. But now that we're moving farther and farther, no, I'm not going there, but you know what I'm saying? It's close enough for government work. You realize that 300 meters is 330 yards? You know, the bullet displacement across 330 yards is about that far. You know, it's close enough for government work. Okay? That's the best answer I can give you. The Army paid a bunch of civilians to come in and build a bunch of ranges, and they told them they wanted them in meters because that's what the rest of the world was doing, and that's what we got. All right? I know that it is what it is. But again, it's close enough for government work. Until you get out at extraordinary distances such as 1,000, 700, 800, 900 yards, 700, 800, 900 meters, it's really close enough for government work. Okay? Especially as it pertains to the equipment we're using. We're not using match-grade equipment. We're not using match-grade ammunition. So all of that's factored in with it's just good enough.